Andy, this is the bike you rode in the Dakar in 2005. Give us a quick tour of what it's like.
Well, they're an awesome motorcycle put together specifically built for obviously the desert racing. We start off with all the navigation gear up here. We have our road book configuration, which is run by a toggle switch on the handlebars. That's how we operate that. We have our trip masters, 2 trip masters as a backup, and also we can monitor speed and distance at the same time. We have first aid kits and emergency beacons mounted right up in the front here. That's all part of the safety equipment we have to run on the bikes. Fuel, we have massive fuel quantity. There's a fuel tank balanced on both sides and also fuel in the rear tanks here. There's 45 litres of fuel, equivalent of a couple of jerry cans, obviously.
Yeah, it's a lot of fuel.
So it's a great deal of fuel, and that we have to carry on the bike.
What sort of range do you get out of that fuel?
We have to get a minimum of 350 kilometres in desert sand conditions, and they'll get into it and get extremely heavy on the fuel, and that's about as far as we'll go. If we're riding down the road, we do 500 to 600 kilometres.
Okay.
Not a problem.
What else you got on there?
We've got water tanks down in the belly pan here. There's a 1.5 litre tank on each side. That's emergency water that we're not allowed to touch. If we do get stranded out in the desert, we've always got water backup that way. So that's in there as well.
Do you change that water every day?
No, it sort of goes in there and you hope you never have to drink it, that's for sure, because it certainly comes out a bit stale and plastic tasting, that's for sure. We obviously have a Camelback on us with 2.5 litres, which we'll drink during the course of the day. We have access to a little bit more water at the refuels if we need a bit more on top of that. Underneath the seat we'll carry some spare parts, tools, bits and pieces, maybe a set of jumper leads, just a lot of little as much compact stuff as we can. Obviously cable ties, wire, all the usual patch up bits and pieces.
I noticed it's pretty interesting. You've got your cable ties and bits and pieces on the bike.
They're just located everywhere. That's just an easy place to grab them. You can pull one out on the run if you really need to and try and get it around somewhere or something. There's a bit of tape just tied up on the cables up here, and there's just little bits and pieces located everywhere. The rally team's been so good over the years, knowing what they need and don't need and where they locate things in there.
What about communication? You obviously, if something does happen, you need to be able to communicate and let people know that you're in trouble.
For sure. We have an emergency beacon. We usually strap it on the front there somewhere, so if there's a big drama we can release the beacon and obviously have choppers there within, virtually within minutes. We have a satellite phone, which is compulsory equipment as well, and maybe a UHF radio. In Australia we have to use the UHF, but with the satellite phone it's not quite necessary in Africa.
So with all the fuel and the water and yourself and all your gear, what's the rolling weight?
Well, the bike alone goes about 200 kilos, so then we fuel on top of that, water, all the accessories and bits and pieces and spares that we need to carry. Then once we sit on the thing, we're talking probably 350 kilos all up, so it becomes a fairly heavy sort of missile at speed, that's for sure.
What's it like to ride at those sort of speeds? Does it wallow when it hits the bumps and that sort of stuff? Is it hard to control?
They're surprisingly nimble and handle very, very well without the weight on, but once we fuel them up, they do become very wallowy and very difficult, and you just have to be very careful not to have it step out sideways on you, because then the weight takes over and it can be all over very, very quickly for sure.
You in the dunes? 350 kilos?
Digging a normal dirt bike out of a dune is hard enough, so these things just bury a lot harder when you hit one.
Okay, well, not only the bike, every day at the Dakar, you're sleeping in a tent?
Yeah, that's it.
What's that like?
We'll get to an overnight stop. Our normal situation is drag the bags out of the vehicles, set up our tent straight away. That's our home for 2 weeks on Dakar. Inside we'll just have a self-inflatable mattress and a sleeping bag, and that's about what our living arrangements becomes basically. Then we'll sort of live out of there with our bag and our toothbrush and just have a wash out of the bottle every morning and just sort of live the best you can.